First of all, let me thank the Pearl Institute for inviting me from Bangkok to come and talk about Islam and Buddhism. I've been engaging in this for about 26 years, but I studied Buddhism as a student of Temple University. But let me give you a background of myself. Normally people ask me where you're from. I didn't want to answer your question because it takes 2 minutes to say. I don't want to say, repeat it 2 minutes again and again. I was born in Tanzania, as he just mentioned. So first question comes whenever I mention that is, why are you not black? So yes, I said there are people like me in Tanzania. Okay. I'm the child of the colony, the British colony. My grandfather is an Indian and migrated. My father migrated to Tanzania, and we were all born there. All the children were born there. I need to have my 4 o'clock tea or coffee every day. That's my religion. This is really a big meal for me. It's very important. I may miss breakfast or anything, but 4 o'clock high tea is very important. So born in Tanzania, and then I still carry the British passport until today. Born in Tanzania, carrying the British passport. At the age of 13, my father sent me to India to a boarding school. We had become socialists, and my father said, "There's no education here. You got to get out here." So I went to India at the age of 13. I've been traveling since then. At the age of 13, boarding school in India, BA in India in politics, MA in Islamic studies from Aligarh Muslim University, if you are familiar with that. It is the first modern Islamic modernist university set up in 1921 by one of the first early Islamic modernists. Again, who said Muslims, if they want to survive in the modern world, have to go for modern education, sciences, technology, social sciences, English language and all. After that, I got a scholarship to do my PhD in USA at Temple University, one of the good schools on religion. I did my PhD with Professor Ismail Al-Faruqi, Professor Syed Hussain Nasser, Professor Mahmoud Arkoon. These are big names. So very, very lucky to do that. And Professor Mahmoud Ayub. And then I came to Thailand 26 years ago. I'm teaching at Thailand, first in Mahidol University, then I moved to other universities. I was at the Catholic school, Catholic Assumption University for 12 years.
Is that in Bangkok?
It's in Bangkok,
Yeah.
And then we just set up this, because of coming of the ASEAN community. So Islam and Buddhism are big in Southeast Asia. 40% Buddhists, 40% Muslims, and Christians and Catholics in Philippines. So they set up this center for Buddhist Muslim understanding. Please watch this word, Buddhist Muslims, not Muslim Buddhists. And I was offered a job, and I moved from my Catholic university, where I was there for 12 years, and I moved to here, and I'm heading this center. We do some activities, conferences in the area of Islam and Buddhism. The final part of my introduction, I speak 6 languages. So I'm globalized before globalization. I speak, I give you the order of my speaking. First is English, I dream in English. Everything is in English. At home we speak English, everything is in English. Second is Swahili language. It's right eternal in me, it's very natural to me. I started studying Hindi when I went to India at the age of 13. For the first time I learned the Hindi alphabets and all that. And then, of course, Arabic for Islamic studies, and Thai. My wife is a Thai and children are Thai, and I picked up Thai. So 6 languages. Wow. I say I was globalized before globalization. And my globalization is globalization of culture, languages, and religions. It's not the Pepsi-Cola globalization which you have today. So that's where I am. So I come up with this saying in Arabic and in Chinese. It says, "Seek knowledge until China." I remember my mother in Africa telling me this when I was a very small boy, that Prophet Muhammad has encouraged seeking knowledge. And Prophet Muhammad has said, "Seek knowledge until China." Nobody mentions this, and why Muhammad said go to China for knowledge? Of course, not to study Islam. That means Islam in 7th century was really at the 7th century. China was in the 7th century seen as a civilization, as the center of technology, science, invention. That's why. And Arabs always had trade. But Chinese trade, Arab trade was always there going on, passing through Southeast Asia onto Arabia. And I don't need to go into the archaeology of all that. So seeking knowledge to China is one of the spirit, the way Islam looks at China. This is the saying of Prophet Muhammad. Is one of the in the hadith, if you can say, saying of Prophet Muhammad. Now, my approach to this whole issue of Islam and Buddhism is based in the history of religion. I'm following Cantwell Smith. If you know Professor Cantwell Smith, he was the director of the Center of World Religions at Harvard University, and he talks about unity among the religions. In Professor Cantwell Smith's view, all human beings, from the first until us here on 23rd or 24th May 2016, we all share a common religious history. Now, it doesn't matter whether the first human being was created or came about because of dependent origination or evolution. You have the choice. Whatever theory you want to believe about the human being's existence is okay. But we all share a common unity among religions. We share a common religious history, including the Eskimos. Nobody studies the Eskimos today. They have their religion. Nobody studies the other marginalized religion. We only know 5, but we have been on this earth for 40 billion years, but we know only 5. And we think they are the great. Many religions have disappeared, and ours will disappear too. So I'm studying with this perspective, without imposing finality of Prophet Muhammad on Buddhism or any other religion. And I'm not also imposing Buddhahood on Muslims. So I'm not Islamizing Buddhism, I'm not Buddhizing Islam. I'm looking at them as two wisdom traditions, two religious traditions, which have met along the history, and are today fighting along the path of history. And this is very critical for Asia. I live in Southeast Asia. We are seeing the coming of, which was not there when I started studying Islam and Buddhism, but of recent, what is happening in Myanmar, what is happening in Sri Lanka, and coming soon to Thailand. I can say this here, after the passing away of His Majesty the King of Thailand, there will be tensions in Thailand. Of course, political tension, but there will be also Buddhist nationalism rising. There are a lot of fillers coming from that side. On the other side, the Mahayana Buddhism, my best dialogue takes place with my Mahayana friends in Taiwan, in Korea, and Japan, because their approach to Buddhism is very, very philosophical, very, very practical. While I compared Buddhism in Southeast Asia, Theravada Buddhism, same as Sunni Islam, very ritualistic, very difficult to engage in a philosophical dialogue. So that's what I come through. So Wilfred Cantwell Smith's approach. Now coming to China, if you're aware of this, follow the white camel saying. Islam came to China from Central Asia, and it was seen as the home of peace and harmony. Why white camel? When Prophet Muhammad migrated from Mecca to Medina, and everybody invited him to stay at his home, he said, I'll let my camel decide. So he let loose his camel, and that camel went to rest in one of the person's house in Mecca, in Medina, and said, Prophet said, okay, I'll stay here. Okay? So same thing. For the Muslims who were having hard time in Central Asia because of several reasons, they followed the white camels. The story is kind of, and they came to China. And at that time, as I said to you, early Islam, it was seen as the house of harmony, the place of peace and harmony. Today we talk a lot about peace, but not about harmony. Why? Because we think conflict is natural. And if you read the media, and if you read whatever is written about religion, modern human being has come to believe that religion is the source of conflict. Taken. Everyone believes that. And it's becoming like a truth. Religion is the source of conflict. So I ask my students all the time, and I ask you, suppose right now, the Buddha, Jesus, and Muhammad walked into this room. What would they talk about? Those who were not here yesterday with me, they can answer this question. They will not talk about it. They will not fight. They will respect each other, and first thing they will do talk about what have they done to the ecology out there. We have really destroyed it. It's because of our modern approach to violence. Postmodernist theologians, what's his name? very famous. It'll come back to me. Talks about ontology of violence. We live with violence as the natural view to life. Just imagine, when we get into the hospital, we get sick, all these tubes they put around us, all the things just to keep us alive, not let us die the natural death, which is actually reached. We're already at that time, but all the money and the more machines they put on you, the more you have to pay, right? That's why insurance is important. So this is the attitude towards life we have today. So religions are not wisdom traditions. Professor Houston Smith talks about them as wisdom traditions. And so religions are seen as source of conflict, give or take. And all religions have become source of violence. My copyright statement is this one. No religion is free from the stain of violence. No religion is free from the stain of violence. Whichever you pick up. My Jain friends, you know Jainism? Jainism is a parallel religion which emerged at the time of the Buddha. Both the Buddha and Mahavira were seeking enlightenment, answer to the question of human suffering. But Mahavira went to the extreme, saying, I'm giving up total violence, total approach to withdrawing myself completely. At that time, the Buddha, and it was practice of the Indian rishis to sleep in the graves or in the cremation grounds, put the ash on them, go to a lot of extremism. So Buddha said, no, this is not the right way. So today, if you know the Jains, they even put masks on when they breathe, because they believe that you would commit violence against the microorganisms. So I tell them, you are also violent. They say, no, we are the most non-violent. I said, no, you are disturbing the ecology. Okay. So this is a question for the Jains too, who are in India. Because they go to other extremes. They don't eat garlic, they don't eat onions, and they eat boiled apples. Would you eat a boiled apple? Just for pardon?
Why is that?
Because they believe apple is a living fruit, So no garlic, no onion, and apple should be boiled. So all these things are done in the name of religion. So I said, no religion is free from the stain of violence. Okay. Now coming to China, other thing is very important is Zheng He.
Yeah.
His relation with the Muslim world. He was the admiral, the seafarer who went all over the world. So there is another connection between Islam, Taoism, Confucianism, and Buddhism. Zheng He is very important. This is a book which was published recently. This is Zheng He mosques in Surabaya, in Indonesia. It doesn't look like a mosque, right? It's a Chinese temple. And it's still there. It is existing there. It is being, people go to the mosque, you can see the slippers the way that was placed. It is a mosque which is still continues to be used until today in Surabaya, in Indonesia. This is the mosque in Aceh in Southeast Asia, in Indonesia again. So Aceh is a very important center of maritime hope, where all the religions came and met each other. This is a 400-year-old mosque in southern Thailand. You hear a lot about southern Thailand. This is very interesting. Anybody? The roof is the Thai Buddhist temple. In southern Thailand, in the place called Narathiwat. Ajahn Kap, he's from Thailand.
Not from Burma?
From many places.
Not from Burma?
Yeah. So this is 400-year-old mosque, still existing. I've prayed there. You have the Thai roof. This is, if you go see a Thai temple, this is the Chinese balcony. And this is the Malay house, wooden house. And this mosque has no nail, steel nail. It is made of wooden pegs. That's how it is fixed. And it's still existing. So I'm talking about the syncretism exists in religion today. But in southern Thailand today, there's a lot of violence going on in the name of religion. So if you see this one, Chinese mosque, Aceh mosque, Narathiwat mosque, and this is a Chinese mosque in Chiang Mai. You can see the reading here, okay? And this is again an existing mosque in Chiang Mai. It was built by the Yunanese Muslims who came over there. They came from Yeah, they came from Kuomintang relation. They came in before that into Burma and into in northern Thailand. And this is if you know one dish called khao soi in
Yeah,
Thailand,
khao soi.
the best khao soi is next to this mosque. Highly recommend it. The best khao soi if you ever go. Okay. Now these are the books which are relating about Islam and Buddhism and Confucianism. This is Sachiko Murata. It's not clear. Sachiko Murata has this book. She's a Japanese scholar, wife of William Chittick, who is a professor of Islamic mysticism, and Ibn al-Arab. She wrote these books about how, I can't see here, Tang Tai Ti, a Chinese Wang Tai Yu, used Confucianism to explain and understand Islam. And her other book is very clear, The Tao of Islam, the title. The other book is by Liu Xi. You are familiar with his writings. Again, on presenting Islam through Confucian perspective. And Professor Izutsu was a Japanese scholar of Islam. He wrote a great book on Sufism and Taoism. So what we know is people don't know about all these things today. You know, we just know what is going on in Myanmar, what is going on in Thailand, and what is going on in southern Thailand, and we just know the rich cultural background we have. And I will come to that in a minute again. These are the very recent books, Common Ground Between Islam and Buddhism. We talk about spiritual dialogue and Buddhism and Islam along the Silk Road, how they met and the problems and how they coexist and how they share things. So this is back, but if you are interested, I would recommend that. So dialogue is a big word these days. Everybody talks about dialogue, but what does dialogue mean? Many people use dialogue to camouflage conversion and mission. I'm not doing that. I'm not interested in that at all. We have to be very clear. Dialogue is a discourse or a discussion between 2 or 3 people belonging to different traditions. And the most important principle of dialogue is enter into dialogue so that you can learn and grow. Read again. Learn and grow, not to change the other. In Thailand, dialogue is banned by the government because many outside religions came and they started talking about dialogue, but their intention is to convert. No, mission is mission. It's a different thing. Dawah is different. Dawah is not dialogue, to my Muslim friends. Dialogue is what Prophet Muhammad did with the Christians from Najran who came to stay, visited him. They wanted to know about Islam. He invited them, let them stay in his mosque, I think for 3 weeks. They said, we want to know Islam. And they prayed in Prophet's mosque, Christian prayer. And they said, we don't accept it. And he sent them back with security. That is dialogue. That is not dawah. That is dialogue. That is discourse between the Prophet and the Christians. We have lost it. People today talk about dialogue, but they don't understand what it means. And to allow the people space to enter into discussion. Some people are more sheepish about offering their thoughts. So they should be open, given opportunity to speak. Everyone must be honest and sincere. Very important. You know, just sitting together in the room is not a dialogue. Dialogue should change you and have to be open and honest. Many people talk about dialogue, but they're not honest. They're not sincere. They have a hidden agenda, not allowed in dialogue. And everyone should define their own religious experience and identity. And no conversion, of course. Not trying to convert the other. Participants should feel free to express their own faith traditions, beliefs, but not try to persuade others to assent to them. Don't feel that you are a spokesman of your entire faith tradition. Very important. Everybody thinks I'm speaking for Islam, I'm speaking for Christianity, I'm the spokesman. Even Prophet was warned, you know, you remember Surah Abasa wa Tawalla? When the Prophet was speaking to some elite of the society and a blind man came and he said, well, you wait. He was warned. You don't ignore the blind man. So nobody is the spokesperson of their entire tradition. Everybody, as I said, myth of religious superiority, you know. Everybody saying Islam belongs to me, Christianity belongs to me, I'm the right person to speak. It's difficult. Don't assume in advance the points of agreement. You don't enter into a dialogue that you have to come out with an agreement. Today what we have goody-goody dialogue, I call it. We bring some priests and some monks and some imams, put them together, take a picture. Oh, we had a dialogue. We just had a picture, just had a shot, just took a picture, that's it. Because after that, I'm speaking very frankly, okay? After that, they go back to their communities and they speak the same thing, which they have been speaking about before the dialogue. So, no, it's not a dialogue. Final point, everyone should be willing to be self-critical and to experience others' faith from within. This is very hard. Empathy, to put yourself in others' shoes and put them in your heart. It's very hard dialogue. When I do dialogue, I try to understand how a Buddhist or a Christian understands their religion, and then come back to my Islam, and my Islam becomes much, much richer to me. That is what dialogue is all about. Empathy. And the last point is trust is a must. If there is no trust, there is no dialogue. It's just coffee shop talk, talking together, goody things, and so on. Okay. Now, when did Islam and Buddhism come together or meet each other? Everybody thinks just like in southern Thailand, right? Or in Myanmar, or in Sri Lanka today. No, Islam and Buddhism met each other in the 7th century. Very early period when Islam comes out of Arabia. It meets Muslims in India, Central Asia. So Buddhists in India and Central Asia. And this is very interesting. And that, I'm not making this all up. Okay, this is there, all recorded. When they came to Sindh in Pakistan, they met the people, they met the Hindus and Buddhists, and they wrote the letter to Hajjaj bin Yusuf. What should we do? So he sent a letter back on the advice of his religious counselor, saying that treat them as Ahl al-Kitab, people of the book. Just as Islam respects Jews and Christians.
Is that as early as the 7th century?
Early, late, going ahead.
Because I know that happened later in the Mughal Empire period, but I didn't realize.
No, this is much before Mughal
Yeah.
Empire. I'm around the 7th century, 7th and beginning of the 8th, so the time is on. Mughal is too late. Mughal is, I think, 13th century or something. Yeah. So, Ahl al-Kitab. When Islam becomes power, when Muslims get power, they forget this Ahl al-Kitab. Advice, a fatwa if you want it. Today we have many other fatwas. Really, there's a text called Chachnama. You can have a look at it. It's on the internet. It talks about this. And they are told it, don't destroy their temples, don't attack their monks, and don't touch their religion. Lakum dinukum waliyadin. You unto you, your moral law, unto me, my moral law. I use the word deen as moral law. I'm not using it as a religion. Okay. Then comes the meeting in Central Asia. We have books. Muslims are translating Buddhist works into Arabic. We have this famous Arabic title, Bilawal wa Buddhatam, and Kitab al-Buddh, which talks about evidence of Muslims learning about Buddhism. Records also tell us that Buddha's statues were sold next to a mosque in Baghdad. Imagine, can you do that today? Impossible. Impossible. Because the Buddhists were living there. There was this Barmak family, which played an important role in the Abbasid Caliphate. This is the Baghdad Caliphate, after the Umayyad Caliphate. So Islam Buddhism is mentioned in this kitab by Ibn al-Nadim. So historical sources are all there. Here I'm saying, At-Tabari, a first early historian of Islam, mentions, reports that Buddhist idols were sold in Buddhist temple next to the Makh Mosque in Bukhara, in modern Uzbekistan. Okay? And this person, Ash-Shahrastani, is regarded as the first comparativist religion, scholar of comparative religion. Not whom we are familiar today, but he wrote a book called, he wrote a big book called Kitab al-Milal wa Ni'am, Book of Religions and Philosophical Sects. And in that he has a section on Ara al-Indis, the views of the Indians. And in that book he identifies the Buddha with Al-Khidr, the seeker of enlightenment. This is the first writing of Ash-Shahrastani. Then you come to Rashid ad-Din during the Mongol period, Introduction to Islam, his work Jami' al-Tawari, Compendium of Chronicles. A lot of research is going on this book recently. He explains Buddhism to Muslims, accessible to them. Okay? These are writing two scholars of comparative religion, not just talking out of imagination of the other. So from 12th to 15th century, now here is the modern period, become our period, you can say, where Islam meets with Hindu Buddhist civilization in Southeast Asia, in Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand. But it is a very mystic meeting together of the Sufi orientation of the early, the Borobudur. Right present. And today Indonesia, if you go to Indonesia, I go to Indonesia often, and in the evening they have this Ramayana play. I went my last visit. In the morning I was at the Islamic University giving a paper and a presentation. There are many people, students listening. And in the evening I went to see this Ramayana play. And one girl who is Sita, the Hindu goddess, she comes and says, "Salaam alaikum, sir." Who is this? She said, I'm a student, I met you in the morning. She herself acts in the Ramayana play as a Sita. No problem. But today you do that, it's all halal, all haram, You can't do that. It's art, it's novel, it's literature, it's drama. These are parts of life. So Indonesia is very interesting. They still have many names which are Sanskrit and Pali. Malaysia also, they have lots of names which are Sanskrit and Pali, but they're Muslims. And if you go to a Muslim madrasa, we call it Pondok or Pesantren, Pondok in southern Thailand, Pesantren in Indonesia. If you go to these are where the students study religious studies, theological seminary if I want. If you go, it's patterned according to the Buddhist school, religious school. There is a mosque, there is the house of the imam, okay, and then there are many small huts in which the students live. It's just like the kuti in the Buddhist school. In the Buddhist school, you have the temple, you have the abbot of the temple, and you have students living in the huts around. Just there in Yala Patani, if you still go in southern Thailand.
Like Gurukula.
Pardon?
Like Gurukula.
Right, yeah, same thing. So it's still there, still practiced. For me, it is a remnant, is an influence of Buddhist temple schools on madrasas in southern Thailand or in Malaysia or in Indonesia. But all this has to be looked into. Chandra Muzaffar and Sulak Sivarak are the two Muslim Buddhist activists from Malaysia. They are engaging very much in dialogue. These are a very, very contemporary period. Many Muslims and Buddhists have engaged in social work because when tsunami hit Indonesia, nobody asked what is your religion. Or in southern Thailand, they all came to help each other, except some missionaries. They said, "You better convert and we'll help you." And coming from all religions. There are many stories I don't want to relate to, So and my college, I did this conference. Was it? Yeah. Oh, and there are many at McGill and many other works are going on this one. Okay. Now, in Taiwan, Master Shintao has engaged in many Buddhist-Muslim dialogue. He's the founder of the Muslim Museums of World Religion in Taipei, if you ever go. I'm going there tomorrow, and I just received a message that I will have a meeting with a very nice Dharma master. He's a Buddhist master. He's from Yunnan also. Same Chinese story through Yunnan into Tibet. But you're familiar with that. I did a conference on compassion, the bridge between Islam and Buddhism in 2013. So I do this kind of work. Okay, I said to you already about this coexistence between Islam and Buddhism. Now, what is Buddhism? Very, very, very difficult for the theistic people, monotheistic people. Let us start by saying, let us define Buddhism. It is a non-theistic tradition. Okay? The question I get always, how can there be a religion without God? I said, think out of your box. You are all conditioned. We are all conditioned. It's very hard. Why should God be important for religion? This is our definition. Christian, Jewish, Muslim. And we put on them and say, you do the same. Why don't we think of like what they think? I went to Thailand, and when they ever do this to the Buddha statue, I used to think the same. Al-Biruni studied Hinduism in India, as I mentioned to you. He lived in the temple, he learned Sanskrit, and he wrote the best book on Hinduism. It's available in English. So I asked the Buddhists, what do you do this? They say, we pay homage to the teachings of the Buddha. What did I say? Teachings of the Buddha, not the Buddha, because Buddha said, don't deify me. Don't make me into God. Prophet Muhammad says the same thing. But we always think they are mushrik. Buddha rejected all the gods of India. There were millions of them. So irrelevant. Very simple story. The Buddha says this. Suppose Saleh is hit by a bullet. What will you do? Will you ask the question, who shot him? Who shot him? Where did the bullet come from? What type was it? was it a Kalashnikov? Was it a gun or whatever? Or will you take it to the hospital? You'll take it to the hospital first. Help the human being to come out of their suffering. We are all suffering human beings. Help us to come out of our suffering. That means help each other. In India, at that time, the suffering was from the caste system. Millions of Brahmins. But the Brahmin caste demanded big sacrifice. And it was an oppression on the low caste people. Until today, India has this problem. Ambedkar, the leader of the framer, the writer of the Indian Constitution, he was born as a Shudra, as a low caste. And he said, I'm going to convert. There's no liberation for my caste. And I have three choices. I have Christian choice, I have Muslim choice, and I have Buddhism. He said, I don't accept Christianity because it is part of colonialism. I don't accept Islam because it's attitude towards women. In India, I'm talking about. So I better accept Buddhism because it is culturally relevant to my view. So this was his view. Another, so when we are talking about what is religion, the purpose of religion is us to make us human being, good human being. And to be good human being is to be a good believer. So religion without God. I gave this lecture in Aligarh Muslim University. This is the big question. Why there is no God in Buddhism? I think that's your problem. It's your problem, not their problem. So this theism, and theism is, Islam emerges in Arabia, and Arabia is full of polytheism. That's where the tussle is. Okay? And Buddha is talking about that. Believe it. He talks in one of his teachings, he talks about Brahma Jala Sutta. In Brahma Jala Sutta, he says, there are so many theories. They are a net. We are caught in the network these days. Okay, and these nets get you confused. So he says, there is the unborn. He doesn't call it God, because that's not his language. Okay, he says, there is the unborn, and without the unborn, nothing would exist. Now it's your choice, whatever you want to make it. So we have to understand how the Buddha is teaching in his own way. For me, he's a prophet. And I'll come to that, not me, because I'm following some scholars, okay? Otherwise that'll be a problem. I have to have some evidences on that one. So Muslims and Buddhists have existed, as I said, but there are tensions these days between them. There are two different religious traditions. There are many writings about Buddhism by Muslims who condemn Buddhism. Imran Hussein's book you just mentioned about it. Zakir Naik, very popular. I go to India and my relatives say, oh, it's a comparative religion. I say, I'm good, it's good. So I'm not into that kind of stuff. I'm more in different kind of. So there are two different views of cosmos. And the main difference, as I said, is between Islam and Buddhism, is about being theistic and non-theism and non-theism. So Muslims should not seek the presence of Creator God or single scripture in Buddhism. I had to study Buddhism, and my professor of Buddhism, Charles Fu from Taiwan, the first thing he told me, don't look for Quran in Buddhism. Don't look for scripture. Christians, Muslims, Jews want the scripture is important. There are thousands of texts in Buddhism, and none of them is central. All of them are important. So don't look for scripture, don't look for God. And my question to the Buddhists is, don't look for nirvana in Islam. We don't have nirvana in Islam of dependent origination. We don't have the concept of rebirth and all that. We have our view of cause and effect, which is about belief in God and do the good work. And that is important, that is enough. So Islam and Buddhism need to be understood on their own terms, as I said, without making one the other. Okay, so there are no prophets in Asian religions. The Buddha is there. There are Buddhist emperors over there. So think the unthinkable. We are required to think the unthinkable. So the answer is yes and no. For the Buddhists, the Buddha is more than a prophet. And for the Muslims, Muhammad is the last prophet, my friend, doctor. Dr. Hartley was having that with me yesterday. Yes, for me the Prophet is the last Prophet. I affirm that, but I'm not giving a confessional lecture, okay? Because my Buddhist students, I tell them, for me the Buddha is a prophet. They tell me, sir, that is not enough. Just like you say. Except, oh, Prophet is the last Prophet. No, there's not. You can't have an agreement on this. I say, yes, that is the maximum I can go. Accept him as a prophet like my prophet. I can't go more than that. I've reached the limit. Okay? I've come so far. Now how about you coming the other way? So, yes, for them, they have to understand Muhammad and his own way, Islam in its own way. So that is called a dialogue. We are not agreeing, but saying we are two different religious traditions. And this applies even to Christianity and not only any other religion. But both of them are part of human religious history. So we can proceed on Muslim-Buddhist dialogue by viewing them as founders of religion. For me, the most important thing I find in both of them, they believe in ultimate reality, called God, and called Allah, called Dhamma, Dharma. A Thai Buddhist philosopher, very interesting. The classic Buddhist question is, if there is God, then who created God? Muslims cannot answer that question. Muslims cannot answer that question. Christians cannot answer that question. This is a classic question. So I asked the other classic question. They say, Dhamma. So I said, who created the Dhamma? They say it is eternal. I said, my God is eternal too. Yes. So there are two eternals, philosophically speaking. And now we can proceed. But if you get stuck on that question, you'll be stuck forever. Okay? And then the Buddhists think, you cannot answer my question. I defeated you. We're saying, who created God? No, God has always been there. Dharma has always been there. So Buddha Dasa says, Allah, God is Dharma, Dharma is God. Let's come to this agreement. Okay? God is Dharma, and Dharma is God. And now we can proceed. Yes?
Dharma, is that T-A-R, right?
D-H-A-R.
Or D-H-A-R.
D-H-A-R.
Yeah.
And this is in Sanskrit.
Right.
But in Pali it is Dhamma. D-H-A-M-M-A. Dhamma. Okay? So these are two eternals. So we have to be cautious on this one. And so for me, both Prophet Muhammad and the Buddha are liberators. Great liberators. Prophet Muhammad liberates humanity from exploitation. That's why Muslims are obsessed with justice. Palestine or wherever, they want justice. Yes. Very important principle of Muslims. Justice is important. Because Prophet Muhammad opposed slavery. He opposed the female infanticide. Babies were killed. Girls were dishonored. My son was born in Bangkok, and my neighbor, whenever when I went to see the baby, a Chinese person or a Thai asked, what did you get? I said, boy, oh, very good. I said, what if I had a daughter? So these problems are still there with us, So he opposed all that. No slavery, no human exploitation. That's why Islam, Professor Fazlur Rahman, one of the great scholars of Islamic studies, not Fazlur Rahman from Pakistan, right? There's a Fazlur Rahman who is on the other side.
Dr. Fazlur Rahman.
Professor Fazlur Rahman, okay? He says Islam is a religion of moralistic monotheism. Moralistic monotheism. Muslims always say we are monotheists only. They don't see the dimension of the morality part of monotheism. So morality, justice, equality in Islam is defined by Tawheed, by monotheism. So, and what about the Buddha? Buddha is opposing caste system. Buddha is opposing non-attention to human suffering. Because the golden rule in Taoism, Confucianism, Buddhism is that wish for the other what you wish for yourself.
So, what do you see this? Why the Buddhism has been driven out of India?
I'm coming to that. Thank you for raising that. I published a paper.
Because this is a vital question.
Yeah.
Because wherever Buddhism cherished in all the Islamic countries or the Islamic society, whereas it can't survive in a Hindu society.
I'm coming to that.
Even other faiths, including Muslims, even now cannot survive.
Yeah.
Still we are facing a problem.
Yeah, I'm coming to that. I've just published a paper on this whole issue.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for raising it. I'll answer it right now. The Indian view is that the Indian view and every Buddhist view is that Muslims are responsible for the destruction of Buddhism in India. Buddhism ended in India because of Muslims.
Really?
Yes. That's what every Buddhist thinks. I'll tell you why.
Buddhist thing.
Yes, every Buddhist thinks.
But the historians.
I will tell you. I'll tell you. Yeah, just a second. Because the Nalanda University, one of the most early university in human history, was attacked by Bakhtiyar Khilji. He was a Turkic warrior. He came and burned everything. Not as a Muslim. He was a raider.
As a warrior.
He was a raider. Okay, and Nalanda University was attacked many times before. But what is happening is how history is interpreted. Now he did attack. There are evidences he did attack. But the Buddhism ended in India because Hinduism revived itself in a new form. The Bhakti tradition. The Bhakti tradition. Ramayana, Krishna, all the Bhakti movement, you know. When what happened when Buddha started his mission?
Mostly Shankaracharya.
Yes,
the first
Shankaracharya,
Adi Shankara.
yes.
Adi Shankara was the cause for
Yes.
destruction of Buddhism.
Buddhism, yeah, that's the whole thing. You got it. You have the answer. So,
No, I just want you
Yeah.
because you are the researcher.
yeah, because Shankaracharya started. So when Buddha
Adi Shankar.
When Buddha started his movement, all India became Buddhist, and it created problems for the Brahmins. You know, who was going to do all those sacrifices? They had nothing. So that's why Buddha is a revolutionary. Buddha is a communist in a way. You can say that. He's talking about
No,
justice.
mostly Indian Muslims, they always respect him as he may be one of the
Yeah,
prophets.
but
even all the sects of the Muslims,
Yes.
almost.
So Hinduism came the Bhakti movement, the Bhakti tradition, and it revived itself. Okay, and that's how Buddhism ended in it. And in spite of the attack of Bakhtiyar Khilji, Buddhism continued to survive until late 13th, 14th century, and then it moved away to Southeast Asia.
But actually,
Yeah.
Buddhism exactly did not completely die out in India,
Yeah, it continued.
because in East Bengal, or what is now known
Yeah.
as Bangladesh,
Yeah.
there is a small Buddhist community
Yeah,
in
in
Chittagong and the Chittagong Hill
Yeah,
Tracts
yeah.
that has stayed there since the beginning.
Yeah.
So it's not completely died out,
In
but it was seriously decimated.
But
Yes.
systematically it is decimated.
Decimated, but not.
Because
no,
one-
but it has not disappeared completely.
There
from-
was a
from-
ruler. The whole India was ruled by the
Yes,
the
but
Buddhist
religion
dynasty.
but the religion
by
itself
Ashoka.
did not completely die out.
Ashoka, another,
Yeah.
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 Okay, it did not die out. Okay, all right,
Did
that's
not
the
die out.
reality.
Luka was also a warrior actually.
Okay.
Yeah, but he converted into Buddhism, so he
Yeah.
just. Yes.
Okay. Muhammad Iqbal has a poem called titled Nanak, in which he pays high tributes to the Buddha. And there's a line in that. He says, the lamp of the Buddha burns in outside India, in Southeast Asia today. So, yeah, that's a Guru Nanak. Iqbal pays high respects to Buddha. Yeah. Okay, coming back. Now, Buddha and Muhammad in the history of religion. For me, both of them are founders of religious tradition. Now, the Buddha is not mentioned in the Quran, but the Quran talks about Allah sending prophets who are not mentioned. Yeah. Okay?
Yes.
We have sent forth apostles before your time. Some of them we have mentioned to thee, and some of them we have not mentioned to you. And the Muslim tradition says that there are 124,000 prophets.
That's a lot.
A lot. And if all of them were mentioned in the Quran, it would be a dictionary of religion. It would help me a lot, right? In my research, I would not have to go anywhere to do all the research I'm doing. So, yes, the Quran doesn't mention. If Prophet Muhammad had mentioned the Buddha, for example, okay, they were already telling him, you're crazy. No, you're really crazy. You're Majnun. That's what they said. No, you're really mad man. Right, there was no Google there. Professor Google was not there to help anybody to find out who was the Buddha. So, yes, the Quran emerges in this Semitic context. It talks about things with which people are familiar. And there are only 23 or 25 prophets they're familiar with. So it talks only about them. But Allah says that we have not mentioned most of them. So that means, and Quran mentions that God has sent prophet in bil-lisan, qawmihi, in every language. Every prophet comes in their own language. Okay? And never have we sent forth any apostle others than with a message in the people's own tongue. The word Arabic is lisan. So the concept of risala, of prophethood, is like that there are many Buddhas. In Buddhas, we only know the historical Buddha. But there are many Buddhas. And there will be many Buddhas coming. So I don't impose the finality of prophet on them. They have their way. Okay, so yes, there are many Buddhas, but what I'm trying to say, the Quran says we don't mention all of them. I should put this here, right? Okay. So, going forward, I'm going to quickly go ahead. I think just a minute. Okay, that's too detailed. But so, what do they share? Islam and Buddhism and even Taoism and Confucianism is harmony. First is morality and ethics and harmony. Okay, what we talk about peace today, peace studies is all because of conflicts which are going today. They talk about liberation from oppression, exploitation. They talk about equality, justice, freedom, fraternity. When I studied in India for 12 years in Aligarh Muslim University. Yeah, 12 years I studied in India. In Aligarh, yeah. So, what happened? You know,
who was the
Professor Mahmudul Haq. Yeah, and many others. And Nizami and all that, you know. So one lady, my student friend, one day she comes and says to me, "Imtiaz, you're useless." I said, "Why? What happened?" He says, "You drink the water served by the gardener." This is Aligarh Muslim University.
Yes.
I said, "What happened?" She says, "He's a low-caste man."
Oh my God.
Wow.
You know, this is there in India.
Yeah.
And I go to Thailand after 12 years and everybody drinks in the same glass. Everybody drinks water together in the same plate. This is Isha in Thailand, okay? So equality is very important among the Buddhists. Justice, freedom, fraternity. And I have a paper on this if you are interested. Muslims are told by the Quran to be the Ummatan Wasatan, the middle people, no extremism, and the Buddha's middle way. All the same. I have a paper on that. The dialogue between Islam and Buddhism, between the middle way of the Buddha and the middle people of Islam. And this also is same with yin yang, the balance which we are talking about in Taoism and Confucianism. So we have so much rich things, you know, among us, but we really don't know about it. Because since the time of colonial period, Muslims have given up studying Asian religions. We don't study. In fact, we study Asian religions through Orientalist sources. And that is the biggest challenge. Who ended Buddhism in India? Romila Thapar, an Indian historian, she's great critic on that. She says the Somnath temple was not attacked in the way it is told us to be. This is the colonialists who have made all these histories. Okay? So this is, we have to really learn history. Yesterday he was talking about Manigai. Yeah. Okay, that's my wife. Manigai. Okay, okay. All right. So the history of racial I mentioned to you. So now, let me go to here. Dr. Hamidullah, very famous in Pakistan, a great scholar of the Quran. He was in France. He died recently. Who translated the Quran into Arabic, into Persian, into French language. One of the great commentators on the Quran. He says, in his view, and that's I follow. He says the Buddha is mentioned as a prophet in the Quran. Why? This surah, Surah Wat-Tini wa-Zaytuni wa-Turi Sinin wa Hazal Balad al-Amin. In the Quran we have a chapter number 95, which talks about the fig, the olive, Mount Sinai, and the city and the land mixing. These are all symbolic references. So, olive is Jesus. Mount Sinai is Moses. Land made safe is Nabi Muhammad. What about the fig?
Is it?
Fig is the tree, is Ficus religiosa, the tree under which the Buddha was enlightened. It is a fig tree, it's a wild fig tree. No, it is, some people will say it is a stretch. Okay? Fine. But some people, like me, who do history of religion, Dr. Hamidullah, we agree to this. But when I say this to, so Buddha is a prophet, when I say this, I'm in a dangerous line.
No, I don't think so, because I have heard many scholars.
Yeah.
In the traditionally they have come from that, but they have some background of comparative religion.
Yeah.
They always, argue that he may be.
Yeah, he may be, but I say he is.
The conclusion point is you have the right. Yes.
I have my right.
He
yes.
is.
You have the right. You are the right.
I was told I gave this lecture in Oxford, and someone told me.
But what about the nirvana, something like that? So there are some conflict.
Yeah, but why are we going to make all the conflict issues as of dialogue issues?
Okay.
If you're going to be on conflict, we'll be on conflict forever.
Complimentary, only complimentary issues.
Yeah, you have to.
Okay.
Yes.
Which surah is that?
Surah 95. Surah 95. Surah 95.
95 what?
95, 1, 2,
First
3,
three
4.
verses.
First 3 verses.
So 1
1, 2, 3. Yeah. Now, somebody told me if you say that, Dr. Yusuf, you're just at the edge of the hell, dropping into the hell. I said, but I believe in God, right? I think that should be enough to get me out. So, but
No,
you see,
no. The finality of Muhammad, the prophethood, there is some difference of opinion still there.
yeah.
Still there.
But
Because
Buddha is before
during the
Muhammad.
during the time of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah,
Yeah.
he has also discussed some of the things about whether the Jesus Christ died or was raised or something.
Yeah.
So these are all not the things are closed, but there is
There's
lot of-
possibility.
Yeah.
There's possibility. So, but people don't want anyone to accept that. Our problem is so much difficult. I have a friend from Indonesia. We were in a conference recently in Malaysia on interreligious dialogue, peaceful coexistence in Southeast Asia, and he chanted the Buddhist chant. A question arose in the conference. Is he still a Muslim for reciting those Buddham Saranam Gacchami, Sangam Saranam Gacchami, Dhammam Saranam Gacchami? Now, do I become a
You
Buddhist?
have answered it.
Yeah. The question is, this is nonsense. Actually, it's nonsense. It's just there are many Christian scholars who can recite the Quran. So, do they become Muslim? I had a friend, Professor David Kerr. He died. He was one of the great scholars of Islam, a Christian theologian. He would always say Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Muhammad, peace be upon him. I was shocked. Very difficult for a Christian to say that. I asked him, why do you do that? He said, as a Christian, I accept him as a prophet. Now, these are, things, what dialogue does to people. I'm trying to say this. This is what, you remain where you are, but you also appreciate and understand the other tradition on its own terms and respect it. And that is what is dialogue was. It's not goody-goody. Goody-goody is easy. You can talk, take picture, have a good meal, and go back home. I tell my students I'm going to leave with a nightmare. Lots of questions in your mind. Okay? So that's what I'm trying. I'm an academic. I'm not a theologian, not a Maulvi. All right, so I'm coming from a different angle. All right. I said this already. Dhul Kiflu, some scholar, Hamidullah again, says Dhul Kiflu in reference to Kapila Vastu. Now, Hamidullah is a scholar in his own right. So
Kapila Vastu is the birthplace
of the Buddha. Yeah. Okay. So what is the common between the message of Prophet Muhammad and the Buddha? For me, both of them are liberators. One is moralistic monotheism, and other is sunyata, or detachment, as ways to end human exploitation of human being by human being as the cause of injustice, inequality, and suffering. Okay, I'm going to go quickly. Now, coming now to the practical issues, historical. Now coming to the contemporary period. I divide the Muslim world into different cultural linguistic zones. You have the Middle East, and all Middle East is not Arab, you know very well. Everybody thinks all Muslims are Arabs. Iran, Turkey, Kurdistan, and Afghanistan. Africa made of different traditions. North Africa. If you go to North Africa, the Berbers are very insistent that they are not Arabs. They're Muslims. The Berbers of North Africa, the Maghreb, they say, we are not, but we are not Arabs. Of course not. Professor Mahmoud Arkun always insists that I'm a Berber, I'm not an Arab. Because they're the children of the Berber tribes over there. West Africa, Nigeria, Gambia, Senegal. East Africa, where I come from. Central Asia has its own world. Now, Imam Bukhari, where is he from? Bukhara. Many people think Imam Bukhari is an Arab. Many people think that.
No, recently
Yeah.
Sheikh Albani,
Yeah.
he's not an Arab,
Yeah, he's not
but
an
he was
Arab.
respected
Yeah,
mostly,
yeah.
more than, even Sheikh bin Baz, he always asked him to lead the prayer,
Yes.
but he's not an Arab.
Yes,
He's-
yeah.
I don't
But-
think there is an Arab and non-Arab conflict in Islam.
No, I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, you're not an Arab too.
Yes.
I'm not an Arab too. I'm saying that we have to be aware of the different cultural linguistic zones of Islam, okay? Different.
No, Islam has not nothing to do with Arab or Ajam. There is that.
I agree with you. I'm not giving a theological lecture, okay?
No, even historically it's a fact, right?
I just came from China. We and Uyghur.
Yes.
There were lots of differences, okay? But both are Muslim,
Yes.
both two different cultures.
Yes.
The Hui are really Chinese. Everything they eat is Chinese. They behave, the language, everything is Chinese. But they were hijab, okay? Or they dress Muslim. And Uyghur are not allowed now into other parts of China. They are told not to come because of what is going on in China. South Asia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, and Sri Lanka. Let there be a cricket match between Bangladesh and Pakistan. That God is on whose side? You just said not Arab, right? Okay, let's have a cricket match.
Yeah.
You'll see what happens. Pakistan here, Bangladesh. I don't know where you're from.
I'm from India.
Okay. Now when
That's
India and
national
Pakistan have a match,
Yes.
so God is on whose side? You pray and they pray too to Allah. Very interesting.
The rubbish.
Yeah. So
Going on. What
okay.
shall we do?
So Southeast
The
Asia.
human is a human.
Yeah. Southeast Asia, Indonesia, and Malaysia. Okay. I should tell you this thing. I lived in southern Thailand for 5 years, in Pattani, in College of Religious Studies. Yes, no Arab, I think. Okay. After Friday prayer, one of my colleagues, professor of Islamic Studies, comes up and tells me, Achan, sir, Achan, they're teachers. Okay. Professor Yusuf, you are a Muslim is good, but if you are a Malay, I love you more. Toba, toba, toba. Astaghfirullah. Right? I was shocked. I said, what are you talking about? Even I'm not included among them. You know? Because they have their own...
It's a racial problem.
Yeah, it's a racial problem. Yeah, racial issue. Okay, so Balkan. This is again southern. Yeah. And then you have the Muslim diaspora. So all different cultures in Islam, in the Muslim. Now, very interesting. When I came to Thailand first time, let me go this way. I sat in a taxi, very vividly I remember. The driver asked me, what is your religion? In Thailand you can ask this question.
Yeah.
We are not a secular country. In London, Paris, you don't even ask anything. So I said, I'm a Muslim. And so the driver says, you don't eat pork. And you have 4 wives. Yeah.
No, not even there. In
Always.
China also.
Famous
Yeah.
quest.
Okay.
In China?
No, in China they ask me, why in Thailand men become women? No, I don't have an answer for that one. That's a current question. So I said, okay. So I turned the question around. I went to many Muslims and asked them, hey, who's a Buddhist? They said, a Buddhist is one who eats pork and has many mistresses. So I said, what's the difference between 4 wives and mistresses? How do you treat them? Your first wife and a mistress. And your first wife, second wife, third wife. It's all a human question. All right? Religions are more than definition. That's why I say, if Prophet Muhammad, Jesus, and Prophet Muhammad and Jesus and the Buddha met each other, they won't talk about pigs and women. There are more important things to talk about, which concerns all of us as a human. So that's how we look at each other. And I was saying this too yesterday also. A common Muslim view is that Buddhists are kafirs, mushriks, polytheists, pork eaters. Mahayana Buddhists don't eat meat at all.
Yes.
I was in Indonesia at a Muslim Buddhist conference, and a Buddhist who knows Islam very well comes to me and says, "Sir, am I a kafir?" I say, "Are you Pharaoh? Are you Pharaoh?" I said, "No, sir, I'm not. I believe in the law, in the Dhamma." I said, "Then you are not a kafir." But I request whoever in this room, please don't use the word kafir. It is used as an insult, looking down on the other human being. Prophet Muhammad didn't use that word. So please, I really request people to do that. Because we use it without thinking of its implication. It's an insult we use it to others. We don't respect. On the other hand, we say, all religions are good and all dialogue. I'm a Muslim. talking Muslim also here. So they know that we use it as an insult, as an abuse to them. So please ever don't do that. I really call this my personal thing. So we have to abandon our biased terminologies. Monotheist describing Asian religions as being polytheist. It's not like that. Okay? And non-monotheistic and Buddhistic obsession with non-theism. Otherwise, you are always on a non-starter, the dialogue. Okay, I'm going to go to Southeast Asia. Now, some pictures I'm going to show. What is the state of Muslim-Buddhist dialogue? They are going to be graphic. Okay, so please bear with me. Okay, some pictures may be disturbing. Now, in Southeast Asia, we have India and China as a big influence. You know this historically. With India comes the religion. Even Islam in India comes from India. But first, Islam in Indonesia comes from China. This is all research done. Not from the yes. I just talked about Zheng He. Zheng He.
Yeah,
If you see the board, where is Zheng? This is Fujian.
Yes, Fujian.
Comes here. We are trading here to Indonesia.
Oh, really?
But did
From-
he bring
Yes.
Islam to Indonesia? I mean, Islam wasn't there before.
Is it what-
Pardon? Yes,
There
before.
is-
before.
They say in
Because there was-
Malaysia, they say they got the Islam from
Yeah, Arab is one element.
India
Arab-
and
Arab-
corrupt tribes.
Yeah.
Even they say this is Malaysia, but he says that Indonesia is
I'm
from-
saying China and I'm
Yes.
saying India because early Islam which comes is all Sufism. Hamza Fansuri and Raneri and many others. They came as traders and then went there. Well, I'm talking about the trading Islam.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, trading.
Yemen also is coming. The Hadramis are coming. So
Hadrami, yes.
normally we don't see all the three trends which are coming. We think only the Arabs are coming in here. Okay, so there is Zheng He here. There is the Sufism traders coming from India, and there's also from Yemen coming in. So there are three trends coming in all together at the same time. Okay, so and China, of course. India also sends Hinduism and Buddhism. All right, and China comes with its culture until today. The most important halal noodle factory in China, in Indonesia, is owned by the Chinese. Okay, and he has been selling for a long time. 250 million Muslims are eating halal noodle by a Chinese company. Nobody asked whether it is halal or not before. Of course it is halal. He's very concerned about the culture. Because today, halal is a big business. It's become an obsession. Sorry, I'm diverging out. Recently there was a question on TV in Thailand, should ice be halal? Should ice be?
Oh, because there's no ice in Arabia.
Yeah. Should ice be? If you buy water in Thailand, water bottle has halal stamped on it. While the Prophet's hadith says that halal water is the most pure element and it never gets dirty. But this is an obsession which is going on everywhere. And my critique is halal is good, is a discussion among the middle class Muslims who can afford to buy halal stuff. What about the poorest people? What do you think about? What are they affording? The questions. These are really hard questions. Halal has become a big business. I was diverging a little bit. That's my question. Okay. Now, wow, this is okay. Today we have conflicts between Muslims and Buddhists in Thailand, Myanmar, and Sri Lanka. Let me go to Thailand first. This is the attack on the Patani Mosque recently. Now, in southern Thailand, there was a Malay kingdom called the Patani Kingdom. It was annexed by Siam. So the context of the Patani Kingdom is annexation by Siam. They talk about them as Siamese, all right? And recently, since 2014, Thailand is in a mess. It's until 2016 now, 15 years because of Thaksin, who came to power. And he made this first attack on the mosque in 2004. This was followed by the next attack in the same year in October, when 58 people were lined up in Ramadan and put up on one on the other, and 85 of them died in the truck. And he was asked, who's responsible for all this? He said, oh, they were fasting in Ramadan. They were very weak, so they died by suffocation. This is what is going on in southern Thailand. Army is totally not prepared to fight the guerrilla war. It is a separatist movement, is a nationalist movement, just like Kashmir, just like Palestine, just like Ireland and so many others, Scotland and all that, which is going on. So this is how children go to school. Would you like your children to go to school like this? With an army escort? Imagine the mind of these young girls who are how they go to school every day in Myanmar. Every day. This is how children go to school. All right. Inside the school. Because it's all nationalism, in which religion is used on both the sides. This is how monks go to collect their alms in the morning. With army escort, not police escort, army escort. No, tell me.
Both
what?
sides.
Both sides. I'm being fair. And there are sorry. Ignore that one. This is attack on a monk. I started by saying don't attack religious people. He was murdered, right? The one he was collecting his alms. This here. Okay, sorry. This is Myanmar. This is very famous. And you know Viratu, the Buddhist nationalist. And he is obsessed. He says Islam is the cause of all the problems in the world. All problems in the world. And he is against the Rohingya. Okay? The Rohingya issue. There was the Arakan kingdom, which was not part of Burma before. Okay? Arakan, historical records. All the research is all that. The Arakan kings were Buddhist kings who used Arabic, and it is a trading zone, which people came and settled, and they have been there, and there were no borders, okay, in Arakan. There were Arakan Buddhists and there were Arakan Muslim. Colonial 1853 colonial record, I read it. It says that in Arakan there are two religions, Muslim and Buddhist. The difference between them is only religion, but culture, food, everything is nearly the same. Okay, so this is, but 1948, yeah, when Burma, 1948, Burma takes Arakan and makes it into Rakhine. Burma is made as a country, and then they start emphasizing on Buddhist side of Rakhine. But there's another issue. There are two other issues about the Rohingya issue. One is that the Arakan Mountains are the geographical border where the race changes from South Asian, like you and me, to Mongoloid. So there's a racist element in that. There's again the issue of the overpopulation of Bangladesh, which flows over into Assam, which flows over into India, it flows over into Bangladesh. And yes, there are genuine Rohingya people, but all of Rohingya are not Bangladeshis. That's why. So there's a pressure, economic pressure on Burma. So it is being made into religious war. We call them religious nationalists. So this is where the whole Rohingya issue is. But you know, all the time, just addressing it as a disaster issue is not enough. I've been to Myanmar several times. I was at a conference recently there. So how many in Myanmar? 84% are Muslim, Buddhist. A monk was saying 84% are Buddhist, 7% are Christians, and 2.3% are Muslim. Yeah, and he says they will catch up. If we make love all the time, still will not catch up. Okay, so it is what Arjun Appadurai, a scholar at Columbia University, is talking about: fear of small numbers. Fear of small numbers. He has studied all these conflicts of religion, and it is majority always fears the minority is going to catch up with us. But no, it's not possible. Demographically speaking, it's not possible.
Same thing in India.
Yeah. So fear of small numbers. I advise you to read that book. Very, very interesting. Fear
By
of small
Appadurai?
Huh? Arjun Appadurai.
Arjun Appadurai.
He's a Colombian sociologist. He's an Indian.
Is Indian or
He's an
Sri
Indian.
Lankan? Because the name.
I don't know. South Asian.
South Indian.
Okay, all right. So Buddhist terror. Now, even Aung San. Okay, going back. When Pakistan, East Pakistan was formed, Burma became independent. East Pakistan. At that time, people from Arakan state met Jinnah, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and said that we want to join Bangladesh. He talked to General Aung San, the father of Aung San Suu Kyi, and General Aung San recorded, said they don't have to go anywhere. They are protected in the Burma. And he was killed 1984, the 48, same year. So you can see the difference between the father and the daughter. Nobel Prize winner, the lady. So all this thing, yeah. After that, Burma becomes very Buddhist nationalist. There are many critics of what is going on in Burma, in Thailand Buddhists who say this is racism, this is not Buddhism. And it is led by this monk over there. I call it non-violent extremism, where the Buddhist monks don't do violence, but they become extremists. Others do the violence. Okay.
But
This is Rohingya.
you mean he's not a terrorist? He's not an extremist?
I said non-violent extremist.
He-
He
What do you
incites terrorism.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's me.
Yeah. He incites
So you're
terrorism.
very much soft corner with, because you want to be.
I'm not saying, I'm just defining it.
Okay.
Yeah, Buddhism will
Give
not
him, give him the certificate.
Yeah, it's an equal certificate actually.
I
Because-
disagree that.
No, I'm saying that, we are not in Thailand. Because the Buddhists will always say we are non-violent. We can't be terrorists. But yes, you can be non-violent extremists, edging on terrorism. Think about it for a minute. Okay? All right. So no Rohingya, you can see. This is in Sri Lanka. The Sri Lankan monk, Buddhist nationalist. In Sri Lanka, it is a problem between the Sinhala and the Tamil and the Muslim as an identity. Muslim as an identity.
Now it's coming up, not before, I don't think.
It was not there before. It's
Yes.
coming up again. Lots of problems. It's
Because their
after
social
taking care of
status is
after
going-
taking care of the Tamils, now taking care
Yeah,
of
taking care of
the
the
locals.
So, are the Muslims ethnically Sinhalese, or are they
No,
some
you're
Tamil?
mixed. It's all mixed.
No,
They
mostly Tamils.
They're
Oh, yeah.
Tamils, mostly
Okay.
Tamils.
Tamils.
Yeah. But again, Tamils from India and Tamils who have been there for a long time.
For a long
and there are
time.
also Sinhalese Muslims. Okay.
Yeah.
And Christians have been taken care of already long time. They're not allowed. Catholics are not allowed to do any mission in Sri Lanka. It is again Sinhala nationalism in the name of religion, which is going on in Sri Lanka. Things have settled down. Yeah.
Probably Prabhakaran is a Christian. He was.
Yeah, he was a
yes.
Tamil. The Tamils are made of Muslims,
Tam-
Christians, and Hindus.
No. But his movement was mostly, philanthropized by the Christian
Okay.
and
Okay. All right.
Christian community.
So this is the militant monk in Sri Lanka. These are the Rohingyas, okay, who are, homeless. And I tell the Muslims, they come to Thailand, they come to Malaysia, they come to Indonesia. But I visited the camps in Indonesia. They are not going to stay forever. Indonesia is trying to push them out. Malaysia is saying you go to other countries because it creates problems in their own countries. They already have many other problems. So they want to send them to other countries. But these people they have no skills. They are very, very poor. They don't even have education. And I say they can't be terrorists because they don't even have dress to wear. They don't have nothing. So they are the most persecuted people. You are familiar with all this. Okay, so what needs to be done? Having said all this, I say, this where we are meeting, we have to give recognition to the Hizmet movement. Fadlullah Gulen, why am I here? They wanted someone to talk about Islam and Buddhism. I respect Fadlullah Gulen as the only Muslim intellectual leader, religious leader, who talks about dialogue, talks about tolerance, talks about accepting diversity. I've not seen it coming from University of Medina or University of Mecca or University of Qom or University of Turkey or whatever you have. These are religious leaders. I give the credentials. I'm not on their side. I'm an academic, independent, okay? So, but I recognize him, saying that it is a service movement, it's an educational movement. Based a lot of importance on education. With tolerance, respect, interfaith dialogue. And he insists on creating scientific, technological advancement. These young people, I'm impressed with them. I was here 2 days. I don't know them. I've never met them. But they have been able to talk with Buddhist professors in Buddhist Studies Center in Hong Kong University. I was there yesterday. A lot of respect because talking about dialogue. Today we were at the Taoist temple. We were at the masjid today, at the Kowloon Mosque. This kind of efforts need to be really supported. And that's why we are here. So we really appreciate it. And I know these people here. I know some of their friends in Thailand. Okay, I need to go. So it's a service movement. And Fadlullah Gule is the first person, as I said, who talks about building a global civilization of love and tolerance. I'm quoting him. Now he refers to the Prophet Muhammad all the time. He says that when Prophet Muhammad was wounded in the battle of Uhud, what did he say? He raised his hand and said, "Oh God, forgive my people for they do not know." This is an approach a Muslim has towards all the problems which we are having. So Prophet Muhammad also talks, is like a spring of a pure water, which we need in this upper age today. Fazlul, I want to go to this recent article by Fadlullah Gulen in Le Monde from France, where he calls for the Muslims that we have to be critically review our understanding of Islam. Really, we have to. We are in a problem. It's very problematic. We need to work with our community to set up the necessary framework for identifying at-risk youth, preventing them from self-destructive path, assisting families with counseling and other support services. I do a study about why are there so many people joining ISIS from Europe. Nobody asks that question. These people, the young people who are joining ISIS in Europe, are the children who are discriminated. Pope Francis was very correct in saying these are the grandchildren of Europe. Europe has to take care of them. They are the children of the European ghettos. None of them are religious in the best sense of the term, and they are engaging in all this. Why are not Germany is joining them? Why are the African Americans not joining ISIS? So there's a problem there. There's a problem of discrimination. About the youth, the Arab Spring. Arab Spring was crushed. There's no more Arab Spring. I was in Egypt with young people, these young people, and they took me for dinner and asked them, I said, how is the economic situation here? They said, sir, we eat one non-vegetarian meal once a week. I'm not joking. I tried to confirm it. I was in a conference, another conference recently, I met an Egyptian, an American Egyptian. I said, is this true? He said, yes, this is true. They just eat beans and wheat and bread. How many times do we eat meat, chicken, fish, all that? They said, forget about chicken and fish. We just eat. We can afford, because there's a youth bulge in the Middle East. There's a youth bulge. There's a youth bulge. A lot of young people unemployed. There's no common market in the Middle East where they can sell food together. And there is people living on subsistence, month-to-month salary. These are economic problems. It's just not that people going crazy. They want to become terrorists for no reason. There should be some cause, and nobody is addressing that. So he is talking about the self-destructive path on which the young people go. Our leaders need to really pay attention to this. And we must promote a proactive, positive government engagement so that engaged Muslim citizens can sit at the table where counter-terrorism measures are planned and share their ideas. We need to have engagement, and there is a need of proactive. Middle East problems are massive. And today it is a declared Shia-Sunni war on both the sides. Our youth have to be taught of expressing support and dissent within democratic means. And this is what he is talking about. I'm going to go, okay, let me try to conclude here. So what I've tried to do is to show that both monotheistic and non-theistic religions talk about moderation in religion. This is the essential message of religions to avoid extremism, and history of religion shows that all religions have emerged in their own context. There's a need to go for the middle way and the middle nation. Need for building interreligious relations through social engagement. Globalization is a big challenge. It challenges our diversity. So everybody recoils into their smaller identities. I just say, I'm a Malay, I love you. I would love you. This is challenge of diversity. You know, we were not like this. You just said, pre-colonial period. But now everybody recoiling. Okay, so this is the saying of Rumi I like very much. He says, the wars of man are like the quarrels of children. Both are meaningless and stupid. That tells you about our leaders. Prophet Muhammad said, your leaders will be like you. Your leaders will be like you. Who are we? What is our state of education? What is the state of our knowledge? What is the state of our behavior, science, technology? It tells you what your leaders are. We don't have statesmen, we only have politicians. I'm going to show you what I do. This is a conference I did in 2013, Compassion Between Islam and Buddhism. I do this kind of stuff. This is the Buddhist monk talking at my conference in Thailand. This is what I want. An imam sitting with a Buddhist monk, holding hands together. Here's an imam in our Harun Masjid in Bangkok. This monk is my student. He now is the vice rector of the Buddhist University in Thailand. And very close to me, they came together. This is what I wanted to see happen. These are my students in a Buddhist university. All of them are monks from different countries, from Thailand, from Myanmar, from Sri Lanka, from China. This is the Bhikkhuni. She had so many problems about Islam. She studied with me, alhamdulillah. You know, she understands Islam very well. these are my students again. This is the last day of class. I teach Islam in a Buddhist university. We should teach Buddhism in Muslim university. We don't do that. We don't do that. Great. This student, one of my brilliant students from Vietnam, a young monk. He just finishes the MA at Hong Kong University, Buddhist Center. I met him yesterday. He has got a scholarship and acceptance at SOAS, University of London. I'm so proud of him.
Wow.
That my student goes out, he's going to make glory here. And he's my student, who studied Islam with me and Buddhism with me. He's a scholar on Buddhism. He has his own credentials, but he's a good researcher. So there's another student here. These are all my students from Burma, from Sri Lanka, from Cambodia. These two girls are from China. Sorry, two bhikkhunis are from China. Okay. So this is I did this year. I take my Buddhist monk students to the mosque in Bangkok. I told them, we are all going to go to the mosque. They said, no, we are not going, sir. I said, why? They said, bombs in the mosque. Guns in the mosque. I said, you go with me. They said, okay. And we went. I came late. With me and my wife, we were late because of the traffic jam. They arrived early. I told them, okay, you go in. They're ready to accept you. They said, no. They waited till I came. Then they got out of the truck, of the bus, and then they went in. So they were very well welcomed by the Muslims in Bangkok. They hosted a lunch.
The same thing in Hong Kong also.
Yeah.
You know, we are having, in every interval, every year,
Yeah.
we are having an open day in Kowloon.
But it's very rare. I'll tell you why. Okay, I'm talking about Thailand. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. This is the lunch. They were still served with lunch. They chanted before the meal, after the meal, in the Islamic center, in the mosque. And this is inside. They witnessed the Friday prayer. They were so happy at the end. Opening of hearts on both sides. This is what is needed as a.
This is Harun Masjid?
No, this is the central mosque.
The central
The central mosque. Okay, thank you very much. I think I'm.
Thank you.